fundraising is different from sales. It runs on the intro, right? The warm intro is how fundraising works. Now, I would argue with you a little bit. I have seen cold work if you're very thoughtful about cold, right? If you're now, let's not get too sidetracked on cold versus warm. Warm is always better, and I'm going to get to your answer. Cold can work if you're very thoughtful in who you're in your research, investors, finding the right people that are looking for your type of deal in really thoughtful outreach to them. Start thinking about this literally 6 or even 9 or even 12 months before you plan to raise capital. So bear with me. What I actually recommend doing, of course, signing up on Foundersuite, but then, even if you don't, right, start building a target list of investors and then try and, you could reach out to them cold. You could say, this is what I'm doing. I'm not pitching you right now. I just want to kind of show you what I'm doing.
Hello. Today, we have an amazing guest who created very specific and very interesting tools that I think any startupist should use and raise capital using these specific tools. So, his name is Nathan Beckord. Please meet Nathan.
Hello. Thanks for having me here. I appreciate being on the show.
Hey Nathan, good to have you on my show. Show is called Venture Growth with Leonizing, but actually I want to rename it Venture Growth with Friends of Leonizing, because everybody who come to my show I consider like my friend after that. And I think this is our first meeting. We met at some conferences, online meetings, I remember, but it's actually our first one-to-one meeting. And me and I think my audience, which are amazing startups and investors, looking forward to learn about your success and actually value that you deliver to your clients, to your friends, and something more, and some life hacks. So please start about yourself. How did you come to understanding that these tools I'm going to build will make difference for many startups?
Sure. So thanks for the question. It goes back. I'll go back in time a little bit. I got out of college. I went to work in investment banking. I thought I wanted to be an investment banker. It seemed really glamorous and sexy.
It's before they lost their reputation, right?
Well, I mean, it's before the meltdown of Salomon Smith Barney or what was the other one? Before the meltdown of some of the big banks that had to be bailed out. And so I did that for a little while, and I was helping companies raise capital, as an investment banker, and that was usually helping later stage companies raise capital, Series C, D, mezzanine, pipes, public investments in private equity, things like that, right? So helping companies raise capital, kind of learned how that works. But I really wanted to be an entrepreneur. It didn't fit right to be an investment banker. So I left that and then just went out to Silicon Valley, San Francisco, and started helping companies raise capital because that's what I knew how to do, right? So I would get a startup as a client. I'd build them a pitch deck. I'd build them a financial model. I would build them some target lists of investors. I'd load it all up into a spreadsheet, and then I would kind of coach them as they go out pitching investors. And that was fun. That was exciting work. Sometimes I would go to the pitch meetings with my clients and, be the CFO guy in the room. But I really wanted to be an entrepreneur, not a consultant. So one day, I don't remember when exactly, the light bulb finally went off, like, why don't I build some tools for this process? Because we're using spreadsheets, we're using, 7 different tools to run a fundraise. Many of them weren't really built for that, right? They were like sales tools and things like that. So that was the aha moment. Let's build some tools for this. And so we kind of had a first iteration of Foundersuite that was a bunch of different tools, but really we kind of honed in on the investor CRM specifically for managing a pipeline of investors. And so we launched that
What the
2016.
difference?
Yeah.
What's the difference? Because, for example, like a startup, I cannot invest in many tools. I want to buy HubSpot for startups, or I can have either Mondays call. So I actually have a lot of tools I can just adapt, to build a funnel, investment funnel. Why do I need, in addition to pay for your Fundingstack or funding suite, Fundingsuite? Why?
Yeah, yes, 100%. A lot of people are using a spreadsheet or they're using HubSpot or they're using, you know, 100 other different CRMs that they use for their sales. And that's okay, but it doesn't, it's kind of using a hammer to work as a screwdriver. It's like not exactly designed, but a lot of nuances is the answer to your question, right? In our CRM, I mean, our stages are things like uh contacted, research, got intro, um sent pitch deck, followed up with a pitch deck. It's things like that. Got into due diligence. I mean, so like the workflow is specific around fundraising. The way you tag investors, it's like, are they a lead investor or a co-investor? I mean, things like that don't apply in sales. And sure, you could spend time and effort customizing your CRM to kind of almost replicate what we've built, but ours is very specific. It's got a lot of thought and insight into how fundraising works, and it's built around that. Now, the other answer to that question is beyond just the CRM, and not to, make this too much of a sales pitch, but under the CRM, we have a database of 227,000 investors for you to search from, right? No other CRM has that. So you can go in and prospect and find target investors, angels, VCs, family offices, and directly feed them into the CRM. And then the other tools are all kind of complementary around.
Yeah, and here I see some problem because I have a list of 250 investors by myself, and I do not share it. I do not share it because no, but people, it doesn't work. So cold call and cold mail doesn't work at all with investors, at least. So how to solve this problem? Is your Fundingstack could solve this problem with cold calls to connect to this investor, not just give a list and then I take the list, I make call, put in funnel, and then conversion rate is 0. So how you solve this problem? Could you help people?
Sure, you're identifying a very key part of fundraising. Fundraising is different from sales. It runs on the intro, right? The warm intro is how fundraising works. Now, I would argue with you a little bit. I have seen cold work if you're very thoughtful about cold, right? Let's not get too sidetracked on cold versus warm. Warm is always better, and I'm going to get to your answer. Cold can work if you're very thoughtful in who you're in your research, investors, finding the right people that are looking for your type of deal in really thoughtful outreach to them. But let me answer your actual question. Once you've built a list of, call it 200 investors, maybe 300, the next step is to figure out how to get in touch with them. Some of that is going to be done offline, right? Maybe you have a LinkedIn network. Some of that you might have to hustle for those intros. One of the tactics I always tell founders is, look at the portfolio companies of these investors, reach out to one or two of the founders they've invested in, get to know them, get on a Zoom with them, take them to lunch, use that to get the warm intro. But drum roll, please. Just yesterday, we released it's kind of a alpha beta, but we released a get intro feature that looks at all your contacts, your calendar, who you've had meetings with, your calendar, your LinkedIn network, and some other sources, and it helps you map your connection paths to every investor.
Oh, that's amazing. This is very important. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's I don't want to oversell it. It's not fully baked. It's getting there. I would say it's like a beta product right now, but it's pretty cool, right? Because you've identified one of the hardest parts about fundraising is
Maybe it's even more value than just all your software, because your software do some technical stuff, funnel, this, that, marketing, I don't know. But without the first thing like connection, your funnel doesn't work. Your software doesn't work, actually, right?
well, that's not really true because people
Okay.
find ways to get those intros, and you still need tools to manage it and send out your pitch deck and track who's opening your pitch deck. I mean, all the other stuff still applies. But yes, getting the warm intro, which, listen, let me answer this a different way. We've been around almost a decade, and it does work. The get intro just came out yesterday. The other 9.5 years, it's worked pretty well. We've had almost 100,000 startups use it. I would argue with that statement that doesn't work because it works really well. But you're right. Getting that intro is a critical key to unlock your fundraise.
So this is the main problem you're going to solve for fundraisers, because really this, instead of doing the company and doing the product, they get into the big numbers of fundraising and try to get fundraised and put their product aside. So definitely you can reduce big number to some specific numbers, small numbers, if you have specific tools that excite me like investor. I'm investor. I got every day messages, and 99% they send me deck immediately. We do this, we do that. This is deck. Please give me feedback. What do you think? And then another 3-5 messages in a row.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So they don't understand, and they spend their very valuable time on doing this bullshit. So
Yeah.
if they will send me something, or somebody else whom I know, maybe met somewhere, some middleman who can say, I know him, I know me. I have a lot of people like these. So these are on position like CEO of some company, a lot of accountants, CPAs. They do this. They send me every day some companies they are working with. Lawyers, they send me companies they are working with. They know exactly what kind of company I'm interested in, what kind of revenue I'm interested in, if there is a lead investor or not, what stage of the company. They know these and they connect me. So would you like to get introduction? And I answer always, if it fits, I answer, okay, I would love to some introduction. It works this way very much, but not directly.
Yeah. Well, you've also identified, I think, reading between the lines of what you're saying here, you get a lot of cold email, cold outreach coming to you. And why is that? One of the hard parts of fundraising is identifying the right investors to target, right? And that's a hard thing. And that's why so many startups will take a spray and pray approach, or like a kind of spammy approach.
Yeah.
Thinking and you're on the receiving end of that. That's one of the problems. If we can help founders identify, out of like we have 250,000 investors in our database, 227,000. If we can help them identify the right 100 out of that whole database, that saves them time. That saves you time, because you're not getting, spam emails from companies that are completely irrelevant.
Yeah, right.
That's another hard problem to solve, right?
And what about AI-based matching? I know a couple of companies, they build some engine that makes AI matching, like in dating.
Totally. AI is a huge I would say 2025 for us, we've already dabbled in AI. We've got a ChatGPT integration and things like that. But I would say AI is probably 2025 is going to be the year of AI for our platform, because that can help, right? That can help identify the right investors. Right now, you go into our database, you search by industry, location, stage, things like that, right?
Literally, it takes a lot of time. Yeah.
It does take a lot of time. And of course, think about the scenario where I can say, show me all the medical device investors in Israel that invest pre-seed, pre-revenue. Boom. If you can do natural language queries like that and it spits out a perfect list, that saves a ton of time, right?
I tried this.
Yeah.
I specifically tried ChatGPT on these.
Okay.
It gives us some bullshit because they take information about some funds they don't exist already, or they exhausted their funds, so they put everything in one basket.
That's going to be a problem, because let's take that and unpack that a little bit. Funds are, I love investors, but they're a little tricky because their website might say they invest at all stages, but they really only invest in Series Bs. You know what I mean? That they keep the optionality in case they find the next, Mark Zuckerberg, to be able to invest in seed round, but they're really focused on this. So kind of telling the difference between what they say on their website and what they actually do.
Yes, and ChatGPT cannot recognize this,
Right.
and this gather that floor uses also this problem as well. So how to solve this problem?
W- We're trying to do this because we have thousands of startups out there. So we ask founders to give like reviews and insights on, if you just came from a meeting with Ben Horowitz, I want you to give some notes. What is he looking for? What do they want? Revenue? Do they want 50,000 K per month? All that stuff that you kind of learn when you're actually meeting with investors. We're trying to gather that. It's very hard to gather that. So I don't know if there's a immediate solution on the horizon for getting that like insider scoop at scale. That's my dream, right? But that's certainly.
But you are working toward this.
We're trying. We got to get our users to give us more information,
Because to build some tools, software tools, that's one thing. And I think 2025 is not about building tools. Like 20 years ago, everything was about building hardware. Then people moved to building software. Then moved to building SaaS. So nobody talking and invest in hardware anymore in general. Just some outliers. And today, I think software is gone. And people invest in something that use these tools, take data and transform data into agency. So this is the future. This is 25. So how are you planning to do this with your tool? You build your tools. Okay, it's like HubSpot, I don't know, for investors, CRM, all these funnels. But now it's time to transform this into agent.
I was going to ask you, what would you advise us to do? I may have ideas about this, right? Because we have, to our credit, we have a database of investors and we have users, meaning startups, out there pitching. So we have data flowing through the system. Some of that, we need to be conscious about people's privacy and stuff like that. Some of that we can extract kind of the metadata around, like, I see, if I see Dr. Leon is like ending up in a lot of committed columns in startups, okay, this guy's a pretty active investor, right? I can pick up some of those clues from the activity on our system. But I don't know. What would you do if you were me? Is it okay to flip the question around?
I would introduce agent based on this data, and that doesn't have some, like today, very well defined shapes and forms and all these form factors. and something that very flexible and could be designed so you can apply your data to personalize request from a founder. So if I'm founder, okay, good. I build this CRM. First of all, I'm looking for matching. You have a lot of data, so I have a bot. You have a bot. Bot takes all these questionnaire and convert these questionnaire, these answers to match with investors. So pop up, I don't know, 20 investors that really match him. And then you can, based on data and based on activity of these investors, to create specific letter to these investors or mapping how to reach to these investors. And you have the bot, you have the agent, and you have very personalized approach. And everything goes automatically. So this is the future.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Fundraising, I've seen it even just in the decade or so we've been in business, I've seen it got much easier, right? It used to be so much more painful than it used to be. Even finding and researching investors was very difficult, right? 10, 15 years ago. That's become much easier with lists and database and PitchBook and Crunchbase and Foundersuite. But all these other parts, researching them, getting those intros, even the outreach and following up still takes a lot of time. A lot of this can be automated. Not all of it, though. There's still a very, I think, human element that has to be part of it because you're building relationships. You're going to build a relationship with these investors that can last 10 years. And so that part you can't automate. If you know what I mean? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but maybe you can. I don't know. Maybe you can, and I haven't thought of it yet. But yeah, I think, there's still, even if you can automate like outreach, follow up, sending deck, all this stuff, there still has to you still have to form that connection and relationship, which
In each business I meet, the first thing I think about is how to automate it using AI. It's somehow, it's my brain just focus on this. When my wife was pregnant, I saw only pregnant women around. And so every day I saw a lot of pregnant women. What happened? Because my brain was in it. And the same here. So my brain, for example, company come to me, startup come to me, and they immediately recognize what they can automate or what kind of industry they are going to automate. It's right automation for this niche or wrong automation. I'm not talking to startups which are not doing AI at all. So they should or use AI because I don't want to spend investment LPs money on manual doing something, even to pay to a counter, it could be automated instead of paying to a counter. And second, if they do some AI and how deep they understand what kind of things they can automate within their niche.
yeah, totally. Yeah, I should hire you as a consultant and help me think it through.
So-
We're doing stuff. It's
I would love to to talk about it. So anyway, I'm interested in your track record. So could you share how many companies you are working with? What your story? What your history? Because we jumped into the business immediately. Now let's get back a little bit and let our audience understand exactly what your track record and why they have to come to you for the help.
yeah, sure. So when I spent a decade helping companies raise capital, that was in the what do we call it? The aughts, the OOs, 2000s, early 2000s, 2010. Or I guess 2004 to 2014, something like that, right? Anyway, worked with almost 100 some companies. We raised about 200 million. That was my consultant days. That was very manual labor. And that was, good. I mean, I'd say we had about a 50% success rate, right? And That's actually pretty good because most startups that try and raise money fail. That also means 50% of the clients I worked with, like we went out, we hustled, we pitched, we drove down the Sand Hill Road, every day of the week for weeks on end and still ended up with no monies, right? That's how it goes. I mean, that's the reality of fundraising. So 50% sounds bad, but it's actually pretty good if you know the numbers of successful fundraising. And then on Foundersuite has really been just to throw numbers out there, it's been much more of a scale, right? We're not so involved, but we have a lot of companies on there. I haven't run the numbers lately, but we were approaching 100,000 startups total. And then the last time we ran it, we were at 17 billion raised by those companies. And I'm sure it's over 20 by now. And then on our new platform, Fundingstack, which is, we haven't talked about, but that's the one for emerging manager VCs and fundraising consultants. We have about 400 some venture funds, mostly early funds, using that. And that's only a year old, less than a year old. So I don't really have numbers around that yet, but we're seeing some good activity around that too.
Oh, wow, very interesting. And I had an interesting question, just 1 second, let me get back. So, there is another side of the problem of how to reach out to your clients, because actually your clients startups as well. And from my experience, for example, last year I did unicorn pitch Africa, Pan-African unicorn pitch, and I just reach out to the startups. I did some list of startups I think good for us, and and I got zero answer. So I wrote everything. So it's a unicorn pitch. Who will win will identified like fund investable and will participate in Silicon Valley, something like this. And I got zero. Interesting.
Why?
So why? So I didn't understand why. And then my friend, that time I was working a lot with African startups, and my friend told me that you should find somebody who is an authority there. Because they don't know you, and doesn't matter what you offer, they don't answer. Because they get used to Nigerian mails and all this stuff,
Sure.
Yeah, so they should get trust. If you don't know, no trust, no answer. So how do you solve such a problem of cold call to such startups? So it's a different side of cold call.
Yeah, good question. It's gotten easier because we have been around, right? So it's kind of fun. Like I'll go to Tech Week or TechCrunch Disrupt and I'll wear my t-shirt and people actually recognize us. So that's easier, right? There's a brand, right?
Yeah.
How do you build trust? Well, building a brand is one way to do that. How do you build a brand? That just takes years of being good and doing good things for your customers, right? So building a brand helps. I mean, to get more specific for us, like we have a podcast called How I Raised It. You're going to come on there pretty soon. And it's over 300 interviews with founders. And just we get deep into how they raise capital for their businesses. And, so there's kind of a brand by association built from that. Right. I think content, right? We put out a lot of content on LinkedIn. Some of it gets 200,000 views. It's all fundraising related, so I think when people see these things, they have a trust level, which, like you're saying, kind of adds the authority, right? Okay, these guys know what they're talking about because they're getting big name guys on the podcast, and they're putting out content that is widely shared and reposted. So they must know what they're doing. Right. I think.
So it's all about brand development. And I actually recommend startups to build their brand as well. This is they have to start from. But they're busy with fundraising, product development. They don't have to build their brand. And then, so I had an interesting conversation with one startup. They're raising money, and for the year they cannot raise money. And I asked him, why don't you hire some brand expert to help you to build the brand, so you will be so you will have exposure for investors in your market. You invested $1 million to build your product. Why don't you invest, I don't know, $20,000 to sell this product? What's the problem? No.
Did you get a response?
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I don't know. I want to do tangible things. Brand is not tangible. It's
True.
something vague. I cannot understand it. I cannot touch it. I can touch my product, but I cannot touch brand. I don't understand this. And unfortunately, when they understand this, it's too late. They get run out of money, and then they don't know what to do. Instead of using money they raise to build their brand together with the product.
That's an interesting topic because brand is something you cannot touch. It's intangible. It's hard to measure, right? It's not like Google Ads or even outbound email. You can't track open rates as well when you're building a brand. I would say something. I made a mistake in my early days. I think this was like our first year after we had just raised money. I hired a PR team. And I probably spent about $25,000-$30,000, and the whole goal was to build the brand. That was the worst money I've ever spent. Now, I think the concept of building a brand is a good one. I would recommend don't hire a PR team. Hopefully there aren't too many PR
Even
people.
it's not about PR team, because I remember in my first company we hired a very good design company from Italy, and they did very, very bad stuff. Very bad. So we couldn't use it. It's not bad, but and not because of them, because of us. Because when you hire somebody, you should provide specification. And usually engineer, for example, he understands how to provide specification for the product. I hope. Sometimes not. But they don't know how to provide specification for the brand. So they come to PR company, to brand developer, and say, I am XYZ, I do this, please build brand for me. They don't know what you are building. So they build something, finger to the sky, something very vague, and you don't like it because it doesn't work. So what I do, for example, in all my business approach, I do something by myself. I start to build brand and to learn about by myself. It's everywhere. When I was CEO, I did something by myself, marketing, for example. And when I learned this, I hired somebody to do it. So, because if I hired somebody, he should be or she should be accountable. And how can I make her accountable if I don't understand what she's doing? So same with brand. Try it, learn by yourself, and then go understand what you want exactly, what market, what product, because they don't know what final product is. And then just you can hire even PR company, tell them exactly what they have to do, and use them like instrument to build it.
Yeah. Hire a PR company. My last word on PR company, hire a PR company after you've had a couple of years of track record, or maybe just get a better one than I hired. I don't know.
Not hire PR company. So today you can hire influencer. They work much better than any PR.
That's true. Yeah. Influencers.
Good.
That's true.
Nathan, thank you very much. It was an amazing interview. What is your life hack for founders? What do you say to founders so they should understand that Fundingstack And Foundersuite are the best tools for them to raise capital today.
What's the is the question, what's my life hack for founders, or what's
your life hack for founders
uh-huh.
that will bring them to your tools?
Yeah. Okay, good question. I mean, I've got a couple ideas, but I'll answer it around fundraising. I would say the life hack for founders, especially if you think you're going to raise capital, is to start thinking about this literally 6 or even 9 or even 12 months before you plan to raise capital. So bear with me. What I actually recommend doing, of course, signing up on Foundersuite, but then, even if you don't, right, start building a target list of investors and then try and, you could reach out to them cold. You could say, this is what I'm doing. I'm not pitching you right now. I just want to kind of show you what I'm doing. And the reason I'm reaching out to you is because you invest. I've noticed that you invest in these companies. We're right in that same category. We're using AI to do something even more exciting. I'm not pitching you. I just wanted to keep you up to date with what we're doing. Maybe even, asking the permission to put them on your company update, your monthly or quarterly update, company update. And the whole point is starting to nurture those relationships, many months in advance. So they kind of get to know you over time. And then when it's time to fundraise, they've seen the progress you've made over the last 9 months. They've seen how your metrics have improved every month a little bit. They've seen you've been able to release, new features or new products on a consistent schedule. They see that you're getting occasionally mentioned in TechCrunch, right? And then when comes time to fundraise, your job is going to be 1,000 times easier if you've nurtured and warmed up these relationships versus starting cold the moment you need money. So that's my life hack. Start this process early and think of it as relationship building over a extended period of time.
Amazing. I hope founders will learn a lot from our conversation, from your life hacks, from your experience. So see you next time on your podcast.
Yes, I look forward to hosting you and asking you some tough questions.
That's good. That's good.